Hello and welcome back to Modern Medicine Roundtable. And the intention of this roundtable is to unite healers and teachers across the globe to join in service to educate and uplift humanity in this time of global transition. And our focus is healing, awakening, self-empowerment, expanding our awareness of who we are, of who we truly are. We stand on the common ground that we are healers and love is the medicine that heals all wounds and brings us together as a real family that we are. We walk many paths, but we all walk the one path of the one heart. So we gather to bring our experiences, wisdom and tools to those who are looking for guidance and support. And this roundtable also serves us to amplify our message and to reach people who are looking for this medicine. This ancient format of the circle that we have here as a roundtable is an energetic protection and a source of support and guidance that we co-create naturally when we come into a sacred space intentionally. So welcome everybody. I'm so happy to have you all here, and we're gonna just start with a little grounding meditation to open our space. So let's just close our eyes and just come back to our breath, tuning in to the breath, to the life force energy flowing through our bodies. And just feeling our bodies from the inside out, just noticing how does our body feels today. And we may experience some tension or holding in the body. I invite you to direct your breath into that area and to soften and melt with the exhalation. And as we gather in this sacred space, I call upon the celestial realms, the angelic beings, our guides, our ancestors, to be here present with us, to support us, guide us, and protect this space. I call upon the guardians of the four directions: the north, the hummingbird; the west, the jaguar; the south, the snake; and the east, the eagle and the condor. I call upon the four elements of earth, fire, air, and water. And I call upon the sacred Mother Earth, the divine feminine goddess, to hold us, to support us, to nurture us, and to open our hearts. And I call upon the power of our hearts as we center in our heart space for this conversation today. And I invite you to visualize a rose gold colored light surrounding us, surrounding this space, this circle, this round table, surrounding our village, or city, or country, or continent, and this earth. And I invite you to visualize a rainbow bridge of light shooting from our hearts into all directions, connecting us with all hearts, and creating this bridge, this rainbow bridge of light, this network of hearts. And as we come and anchor in our heart space, our intention is to serve, to uplift, to empower each one of us and all the people who are listening or who are connecting to this energy right now or anytime. So let us be clear channels and vessels for truth and wisdom and love as we share our messages from our hearts today. And I just take another deep breath, breathing in. And as we breathe out, slowly opening the eyes and coming back to our space. Welcome, dear sisters and brothers. So good to have divine masculine presence in our circle. We were calling that in after so many divine feminine being here and contributing to this beautiful round table. So thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Lisa, Aya, Carmel, Kelly. Kelly's here with me. We are in the same space today. So I'm super excited to dive into this topic today. Our title for today is Healing as a Path of Spiritual Awakening. And I was really called to do this roundtable because really for me, healing and awakening is kind of like a synonym. And I am on this path of healing myself, obviously the only person who I can heal, and bring messages of healing, to other people who are listening and who are resonating with this message. And I remember when I started out on this journey, where first of all my intention for this journey or my motivation more like was my own suffering. So, and I'm sure that a lot of people feel this way, just not happy, with their life or the way of being in this world. And that was certainly true for me. And that was a big catalyst and motivation for me to embark on this path of healing and awakening. And when I started on this path many years ago, I had this very, I think, common perception that, awakening is something beautiful and blissful, and I'm going to just awaken into this bliss and into this harmony and into this peace and love and joy, and it's going to be, everything is going to be perfect. So, and as after many years of, I can really say that I really resonate what Adyashanti said, which is that awakening is a destructive process. And that was certainly my experience as I kept walking my path. Every time I would come to a threshold of further expansion of my consciousness, it always started with a very deep dark night of the soul. And even this year I had this little walk in the underworld, my underworld. And that was first, that was quite a shocking experience for me, and it took a while for me to understand how this is like a necessary part of this journey, and how I am already all what I'm looking for, and really the work is to kind of dismantle and remove the parts of me that are not true or not real. And that is a destructive process. That is a process of letting go. That is a process of death. And every time I did that, I came to a lighter space, a happier space, a more wholesome place in myself. And so for me, the whole purpose of this journey is to be happy. It's very simple, I think everybody wants to be happy and enjoy their life and enjoy this experience that we are having in this body on this earth. And that's what it's all about for me. That's why I'm doing it, because I experience that even though there are these dark nights that are leading me to expand that container and to expand that love that I'm able to feel and to give and receive, it's always brings me to a better place. So it's kind of like worth it, and as I'm going through these dark nights, that shock value is not so strong anymore. It's still intense, there is intensity, but I observed the last time I was going through this experience, it was just while I was in the intensity, I knew that this is a liberation, and I did have gratitude even in the intensity, even in the darkness, knowing, where I'm going and why this is necessary for me to go through this experience in order to expand that container. And a really dear friend of mine and teacher of mine said this to me once, that love is all inclusive. And this is something that I kind of contemplate, since then, and every time, I'm having a deeper understanding of what does this mean. But it really represents for me that journey of, how much love I can hold and express, and how many people I can include, because I have to say that at the beginning that container was quite small and it was like, you are either in that circle of trust or I don't really care, and I think that's a journey, to expand for me that container, and to make that true for myself, that love is all inclusive and includes every being, in this on this planet, in this existence, in my reality. So that's definitely work in progress. And I think, that about the dark night is really, I think the reason why I had such shocking experiences at the beginning, and so kind of full of suffering when I went through these dark nights, because I realize now in retrospect that I was so attached to my suffering and to the identity that I thought I am, and as I loosen, this grip of attachments in myself, it's kind of easier and easier to go through these experiences. But I think this is something that probably most of us can relate, that attachment, and that what creates, I think, the suffering that we are attaching. Another teacher of mine said that it's like anger, like anger is like a burning coal, and you're holding that coal, and you're like, oh my God, it's so hot, and it's like so painful, and it's like, just drop it. And it's like, no, I don't want to drop. That's my anger. Like, who would I be without my story and without my suffering? So it's very much, represents for me just the process that I'm personally going through, and probably will continue to go through. And another thing that I wanted to share about that the ego and the arrogance, that I certainly had at the beginning, and I still have to a certain extent. It's just like not so strong anymore. That every time I would go through an expansion and an awakening experience, I would think, I figured it out now. Like, all good. I know everything there is to know from here on. Yeah, it's gonna be easy peasy, everything. And then there is another humbling experience. And even with this beautiful plant medicine, I keep working with the ayahuasca. I had a journey, and it was just this like mind-blowing, expansive, just really transcendental experience when I was like, wow, mind blown, heart blown, everything blown apart, like open, not apart, but in a good way. And at the end of the ceremony, at the end of the journey, the spirit of the plant told me that the mystery is infinite, and I only showed you this much. And that was kind of like just really edged into my mind, and that's something that I keep coming back when that ego voice is saying that I got it now. I understand, that I always think back, and that voice is still there, that nothing, and the mystery is infinite. So let go of these ideas. So yeah, we have some good guiding questions that we are reflecting and sharing our experiences today. So I'm really excited to hear from all of you, and how is your experience and your journey of healing and awakening. So I'm gonna give it to Kelly, because she's here right now to continue with this journey, with this introduction. Welcome, sister. You were here before with us in the round table. So good to have you back. So, and I'm passing you the talking stick.
Great. So where would you like me to start? Like, just
wherever you like, whatever
Okay.
comes to you. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so a spiritual awakening, it's interesting for me. I've been leaning into this for a while, because there's several levels of awakening. I mean, I was in a church for 37 years, and I thought I was awake. I thought I was spiritual, connected to God. And the truth was, is I was living a very disconnected reality, disconnected from my body, my emotions, my soul, nature, all of it. And I remember just experiencing a lot of troubles in having relationships, especially romantic relationships. And one day a friend was like, well, you seem to be the common denominator. Maybe you should look into this. And I was like, what? I don't want to hear that. And it actually did cause me to pause and think, like, what is going on? And I ended up picking up this book. Well, I started therapy for once. And then I also picked up this book called The Body Keeps the Score. And from there, I realized, like, there was so much more technology that my body had access to. And I would show up to therapy all excited and be like, can we try family constellation? And after a while, I realized this therapy was only going so far. It was making me feel normal, like all the ways I was acting out were normal, and it wasn't really making the changes in my life that I desired. And so I just had this idea, this crazy idea, to try something new. And I signed up for a somatic healing retreat. And right before I left, I heard this voice inside of my soul, or maybe it was my soul speaking. And it said, get in touch with your body and nature, because this is where your power is at. And for anyone that's been raised in a religion, especially Christianity, it brings a person, if you follow the doctrine, like I did, I took it very seriously. If you follow the doctrine, it leads you to a state of being disconnected from the human experience, from your spiritual experience, and even from nature. And so to hear get in touch with your body and nature was revolutionary for me. And I remember even telling friends and family that I'm getting ready to go on this journey. And they were like, why are you going to do that? That's not going to help. And I did it anyways, because I was sick of dealing with the consequences, and whatever I was doing wasn't working, and everyone in my family had already tried all that stuff and it wasn't working. So I blazed a new trail. And I learned how to feel my body, feel my emotions, and even got trained in things like how to read the body language. And from there, it's like fast track into being able to hear what doesn't feel good about my human experience, and what is my body asking for that does feel good. It's like shortcut. So learning to create that safety inside of my body was amazing. I mean, first of all, building the trust that everything my body does is love was revolutionary for me. Absolutely revolutionary, because I had believed that my body was the enemy, that it was unsafe to be in my human experience. I couldn't trust myself to make good decisions. I couldn't trust myself the way I would think or feel, my motivations. And so learning how my body functions allowed me the ability to tap into my innate technology to interrupt these unhealthy patterns and start new ones. And now I'm living this really abundant life. I mean, 3 years ago, I was still struggling to have relationships, and now I'm a soul coach. And every day I'm teaching people how to hear their body, and every day I see people love themselves that much more. So that's a little bit of my journey. Do you want me to share more?
Do you want to?
Yeah, I have a few more things.
Yeah.
I would like to lean into this destructive piece about the awakening process.
Yes.
I get a lot of comfort by observing nature and seeing how nature takes all the death, all the destruction, and creates life out of it. We see it every year with the seasons. The leaves fall off the tree, they go into hibernation, they conserve all their energy, and then all those dead leaves are fuel, they're protection for the ground, but also fuel when the spring comes that the tree can grow. And I have come to this place where, yeah, I still get scared when I understand I'm going to face something deep. And I'm like, what's on the other side? Because it ain't going to kill me. I'm still alive. I'm not dead yet. What's on the other side of facing that fear? And there was a quote I wrote down. It's not exact, but it's something along the lines of, when we face our fears and our proverbial death, we discover that which is indestructible. And so every time I go deep and I transmute something that's hurting, or some pattern that is begging to be shifted, I find the parts of me that are indestructible. And I would say that my guiding principles for spirituality are love and purity. I believe that at our natural state, we are born as pure love and innocence. And it is our honor and God-given right, goddess-given right, to discover the innocence and love that we are and bring this forth into life. And because you do medicine, I'll share a little snippet of a medicine journey I did with Bufo. And for those of you who aren't aware, it's one of the strongest medicines, and for me it allowed the defenses to drop, and all these walls that I'd built to create this safe little reality to live in went away, and the emotions that I felt came alive. And thank goddess I had two amazing practitioners to hold the space, because what I experienced was coming back to my innocence of being born and being pure love and desiring to just be love in this world, and receiving a very violent and traumatic experience, and how that set off in me a series of responses in me that made me feel like the world wasn't safe. And so I'm sharing this because the truth is that when the walls are gone and the fear is gone, the innocence and love is still there. And I remember being in that process and rewriting traumatic stories in that moment, and realizing like the ultimate reality I'm putting my energy towards is creating a space where people feel safe enough to open up into surrendering to the reality of whatever it is, the good, the bad, the ugly, the bad, right? The good, the ugly, the painful, and to be held into wholeness, to really be guided and loved into wholeness. This is it, y'all. This is really it. And one last thing, one of the questions was, what do I feel about the state of the world right now? I have so much compassion for the world. Right now, what I see is the masses in a trauma state. I'm talking about how we have been traumatized since childhood and had our rights taken from us, and information put into us that is not that we wouldn't normally consent to, and practices forced upon us that we wouldn't normally consent to. And as beings that are love, our cognitive dissonance is, how do we reconcile the pain that we're seeing in the world, the things that feel like hatred, with the loving nature that we are? So this is where I see the world right now, and I believe that the key to coming back to our natural state of bliss and peace and love is to heal all those wounds that built our walls up. And we do this together.
Thank you, sister. Yeah, I really so resonate with what you were saying, and I did think about this in a similar way, the world being traumatized, on a collective level, and just comparing it to my medicine journeys, I see it as or journey, or collective journey through this like major dark night of the soul that we are in the last few years especially. And as Kelly said, I do have a lot of love and compassion for everybody in this world, and I do feel excited and very, very hopeful about what's on the other side, as Kelly said, and that rebirth that is going to come, after this destruction of the old reality that is not serving us anymore. So thank you for bringing that in. And I'm going to give it over to Lisa. I would love to hear from you, sister. Thank you.
Yeah, hi everybody. So thank you, Nina, for inviting me to join this lovely group of people. For me, it's this evening, so wherever you are, whatever time it is, welcome. And so just to let you know that I see myself as a medicine woman. The medicine came to find me, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. I'm also a holistic health and wellness practitioner, and I'm shifting into becoming a dreaming coach. That's my next stage. So you asked us if we had an impactful story that brought us to, awareness or awakeness or whatever you want to call it. And for me, it was when I arrived in Canada. And I arrived in Canada in 1999. And to be honest with you, it was not my choice of place to go and live. But I was married at the time, and so I followed my husband there. That was predominantly his choice. Prior to that, I'd lived in many different places that had been my choice. Anyway, so arriving in Canada, I had no idea why I was there, apart from following my husband. And I had no idea what I was going to do. And it took me about 2 years of contemplation and reflection and observation, because it was a new country, a new place to live, and everything quite different. I've been living in France prior to that, and I was looking, and I thought, okay, I'm going to set up my own business, but I had no idea in what. And then one day I came across this holistic health and natural medicine school. Anyway, had no idea what all that meant. I thought, okay, I'll take a course, see what it's all about. One of my kind of driving forces is childlike curiosity about everything. And so stepped into this whole new field, and yeah, and I was just fascinated. I just loved it, and it was exactly where I needed to be. However, while I was studying and training quite intensively, I went through what's called a healing crisis. Again, I had no idea what that was. I was kind of scared and afraid, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go and talk to the directors of the school and get some help, because I had no idea. And she recommended to me that I start working with one of the teachers at the school, so which is exactly what I did. And so I started working with her quite regularly. And during that time, I found out that she was a shaman. Again, I had no idea what shamanism was, what a shaman was. This was all very new and all being brought to me. So at the end of the first year of working with her, while I was still studying at the school, she said one of her teachers was coming into Toronto offering a workshop for a weekend, and she suggested that I go because she thought I would really like it. So the workshop was on dreaming, and this was, whoa, okay, well over 20 years ago, and just getting my feet wet. And I loved the workshop. It was the first time that I did a sweat lodge and found out about shamanic teachings. And I said, where can I get more of this? And so I checked out the school that this teacher came from. The school was in Toronto. And I decided to sign up for a week-long vision quest. Again, had no idea what I was getting myself into, but hey, jump, right? I loved it. It was hardcore, very hardcore training, but it was exactly what I needed. And I said, where can I get more of this? And I signed up for 6 years intensive shamanic training with this school. So I was studying in Toronto, in Montreal at the holistic school. I was working with the shaman. I worked with her for over 10 years, eventually working with her. And then I was training in Toronto. So as you remember, I was still married at this time, right? Now, all these fields opened up all new doors for me, allowed me to step into new spaces and new places and meet all kinds of people. And one day I came home and my husband said to me, I don't want any of this stuff in my house. I was shocked. I had no idea that this was going to happen. And this was a turning point. So there were two parts of me. One part realized that this was not going to happen and that my marriage was definitely on the rocks. And the other part was that I knew that I had found my path and there was no way I was going to give that up. And so this is like the flip side of the coin, right? You find something that you are connected to, that fills you, that takes you to new spaces and new places, you're expanding. And yet on the other hand, I had to let go of something that was very dear to me and that it was very, very painful. So again, and I agree with Nina, that's the destructive part. And I think that's the hidden side, the dark side, the shadow, whatever you want to call it. And I think that to get to the light, we have to go through the dark. There is, unfortunately, as humans, that's how at the moment, that's how we've made the process. Maybe, once we're all awakened or whatever you want to call it, vibrating higher or in a different space, we'll be able to skim and surf over the dark side. I don't know. I think the dark side is part of our humanness, has become part of our humanness. Let's put it that way. I don't think it always was, from my understanding, but how we've been conditioned and controlled and suppressed. I think what we're going through over the last couple of years is just an example of what has been happening for thousands of years. But I think this is actually an opportunity that we're going through for a lot of us to kind of open our eyes and to begin to understand that nothing is what it seems and that there's always other possibilities and other opportunities and other choices. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. That's awesome. I have lots of notes to contribute, but first I'm going to give it to my dear sister, Aya. Welcome to this round table. So good to have you here, and passing you the stick, sister.
Yeah, just want to take a moment to thank you, Nina, and Avatar Healing Arts too, right? I guess, yeah. And just, yeah, I just feel super grateful for this path and all the powerful people that are here. I can just really feel the energy. So, yeah, so spiritual awakening for me has meant a lot of things. I can't, I think it's hard for me to kind of put in these really simple words. So I think I'm just going to share a little bit of my story. So I came from a home, a dysfunctional home, like a lot of us who find, healing, spiritual awakening. My mom had and still has paranoid schizophrenia. She had it my whole life. And I was born basically on a psych ward. I grew up in a time, my mom grew up in a time where, mental illness or just the appreciation for suffering and be able to recognize and actually to help someone in a way that is healing was not available to her. And we are coming out of that. It's a long lineage of suffering for a lot of people in that boat. And my father had a gambling addiction. My father's from Iran, and so I'm first generation. And so my parents did the best they could. They really did. And within that container, there was a lot of onto me as a child. And another sister mentioned, we come into this world so pure, so innocent, full of love. And then we're imprinted, with all the somatic energy, the attention that I didn't get, that I did get, the attention I didn't need it, or the attention I needed, and just developing as a child, right? All these things were against me. But in my family, so one thing that was family story was it's about what you do, so go out there, get a degree, do something in the world. Yet there wasn't a lot of attention into the emotional internal world. So I did it. I went out there, I was strong. A lot of people go through trauma, you learn to be strong, you put on that somatic armor, right? And, to a large extent, it worked for me until it didn't. So in my path, I've always been connected to humanity. I've always wanted to help in some sort of way. So in my studies, I landed on going to get my master's in social work. I could see the pain in the world, and I was like, damn, we need to do something about this. This is nuts. And so I went on that path, I got my master's in social work, still not addressing my own internal world. So I'm moving, but I'm not personally addressing what has happened to me, or really don't have any awareness of what growing up in that type of environment has actually done to me. So I'm really working off of a lot of dysfunctional patterns. And, throughout my adolescence and even growing up as a young adult, fell into a lot of dysfunctional patterns, eating disorders, alcohol, numbing, caffeine, workaholism, perfectionism, all of this stuff. So to keep it short here, because I know we have limited time, it was basically a culmination of, I graduated with my master's in social work, and I just landed a job that I couldn't believe I got. And I just leased a new car, and I'm driving to this dream job, and I'm like, why the fuck do I still feel empty? This was supposed to be it. In my family, when you get X, Y, and Z, this is when you're going to feel whole. And it was kind of earth-shattering, because emotionally I was like, damn, there's something still missing here. And I was like, I remember saying to myself in my car, I hate myself. And it was really the perfect breeding grounds for something else to be birthed out of me. But I didn't know what that was, and that's when the universe, truly synchronistically stepped in. And at this treatment center that I went to go work for, I was introduced to so many things like family dynamics. And one of the first tasks they assigned me when I was there was to teach this shame resilience course by Brene Brown. So like, as I'm reading the material that I'm about to teach, I'm like, oh shit, I am full of shame. Like, what is going on here? This is the first time I've ever heard about shame. And then they showed these videos from John Bradshaw, who was like a shame expert in the 80s. And I'm just like watching this and I'm like, oh my God. And it's all about like learning about your childhood neglect and all this stuff. So finally I have the language to like, bam, unlock all these things that I had gone through. And I'm making all these connections. And the universe is just showing me all the things that are unhealed, untouched, that somatically I could tell wanted it so bad. So I left that place, went back to the old nonprofit I was working for prior, and they had an EMDR training that they paid for the entire staff. So EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. And as I'm going through that training, once again, I'm like, you know, I'm not here for these people. I'm like, this is for me. I'm like bawling my eyes out as I'm going through this training. Right after that, I went and found myself an EMDR therapist, you know, ready to do some like hardcore unpacking of what I had gone through. And then I went to a 12-step program, adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. And then I finally found this medium or this channel that someone told me to go see. And that's where I began discovering ayahuasca. And from her mentoring led me into getting trained in hypnotherapy, Reiki, shamanism, all of these things. So, you know, I'm so grateful that, like, although I was very stubborn, I was very defensive, like so defensive, you know, but I'm so glad that somehow I was always in the right place at the right time when it came to the perfect tools that I needed for my own healing. And for me, with spiritual awakening, I'm still in the process. Like, it's not over for me, you know. It's like, it's a, you know, the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. It's like constantly awakening, following my bliss, and then uncovering more layers and more parts that I haven't seen yet. And so it's a continual journey. I'm trying to remember every single day. And I'm definitely in my own dark night of the soul right now. So I'm going through it, you know, and it is a destructive process. And I would say in that it's a deconstruction, a disintegrating of all the parts and renegotiating the parts, you know, the parts that have been wounded and neglected, and resourcing them, giving them tools to feel supported and loved and accepted and compassion, all the things that they needed when they exited my body, you know, when they were like, all right, it's not safe to be here. And yeah, so all those things integrate into more wholeness. And that's a goal I'm always working on. You know, it's a constant process, and oh God, is it uncomfortable sometimes, you know? And that's why it's like knowing people like Nina and just all of you guys, you know, I don't know you that well yet, but support and community and knowing you're never alone. So yeah, that's just a little snippet. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Thank you guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, beautiful sister. I appreciate you.
Well, I'll start with you mentioned something about healing, awakening through healing. So yeah, I've always, for some reason, I've always been interested in the metaphysical from a very early age, you know, and around the age of 12, I read the story of St. Francis of Assisi. And that blew my mind because I was fascinated by this guy who was so wealthy and was having a great time, yeah. And he gave it all up to live in a cave. And for a 12-year-old to read that, I'm going, wow, you know, why would he do that, you know? So, and it wasn't a spiritual question, it was just basically a practical question. Why would anybody give up the luxury of a palace and blah, 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 and go and live in the cave, you know. And so that question was in my mind forever. And around 17, I met this guy in art college. I was studying sculpture, and he was a member of the Rosicrucians. And he done something remarkable for me. I was really in bad pain, and he got rid of the pain in a few seconds. And then he introduced me to the fact that he was a member of the Rosicrucians. So I ended up joining the Rosicrucians for about 10 years. And then I was sort of slowly getting into a rock. I was in a rock band, and I was slowly sort of going more into the rock than the Rosicrucians. And eventually the rock took over. And then I met somebody, and then I got a mortgage, and then I got a house, and it all went into the background. And around in my 30s, early 30s, I done my back in when I was working on a sculpture project. And I was in pain, severe pain, for a year. Couldn't lie in the bed, or anything. I was lying on the floor all the time. You know? And I heard about Reiki. And so I went along, and it was a weekend workshop. And I spent the whole weekend crying. Literally, everything just fell away for a while, you know, but it was enough for me to go into other modalities. I went and studied Ericksonian hypnosis and NLP and stuff like that. So that Reiki weekend was probably a temporary awakening for me. It kind of brought me back. I'd left it. I'd gone into mortgage land and livelihood land. Then I came back, studied Ericksonian hypnosis, then NLP, and then became an assistant trainer in that. Then I ended up doing coaching. That's when I met Carmel, which was another mind-blowing experience. So so I've been going doing this and doing that. I worked in an addiction clinic for about 7 years. And then in 2013, I had this profound experience where an entity started coming to me in the early hours of the morning, which totally screwed up my mind. And that went on for about a month, and then it just stopped suddenly. And I went into deep withdrawal situation, totally depressed. What I was told during the visitations completely changed every aspect of my life and how I view life. And then I came back to Ireland, and then I had another episode in Ireland in 2015. And since then, I've been kind of lost, really, just wandering around. Nothing really. I'm not enthusiastic about anything really. I've wrote the book, Prompting from Carmel, but it's not published. It's completely written. We got a proofreader in and everything like that. But I've just been kind of scared to release it or publish it. So recently, in the last month, people from different areas of my life have been asking about the book and could they read it. So I've given it out to a few people, and there was quite a positive response to it, which surprised me. And then Carmel mentioned this gathering, and she says, why not come on it, you know? And I was very apprehensive, really apprehensive about coming on, because I looked at the list of all you guys and I just said, wow, you know, all these guys have websites and they're practicing and they're helping people. I'm actually not doing anything like that at all now at the moment. I'm focused on myself, but I would like to get back into it, you know, in some way. So I'm trying to find my way back. Okay, and that's basically my story up to date. awakening is a destructive process, definitely, absolutely, yeah. And is there a goal, a purpose of awakening? No, I don't think so. I think awakening, we live in a world of duality. This is my take on it. So awakening has to have unawakening. So my personal experience is I'm awake, then I'm asleep. I'm awake, then I'm asleep. And that's a necessity for duality, because you can't have one without the other. So for me, it's a constant self-observation all the time, just noticing those movements in me. And what's the next one? Do you think that there is a collective awakening? No, I don't. I actually don't. I agree with Lisa. I don't see anything extraordinary about what's happened at the moment. It's always been like that. You know, if you go through history, it's always been like that. In fact, we've experienced, in my mind, on a material level, a golden age for the last, say, 50 years, compared to what my grandfather's life or my great-grandfather's life. Yeah. So I think it could be coming to the end of that. I think sort of it's gone to that level, just like everything. It's gone to it's beginning to ebb now and come back again. And for me, if I'm in touch with my center, which is not very often, but when I am, it doesn't really matter what's happening out there. It's happening anyway. Yeah, it's just happening anyway. So I try not to get too caught up in it. Fail miserably sometimes, because the whole mandating thing and stuff like that, my rebellious nature just gets me really pissed off about that. So my natural tendency is to revolt, to rebel. But then when I just calm back down, come back to my center, oftentimes helped very much by Carmel, I can settle in and really look at, well, all is well. Yeah, all is well in that center all the time. And I think that that's what love is, that center, that yearning to continue to exist. I think that's what love is, that yearning to continue to be in existence. So I think that's it. I think I've gone through them all. So thank you for listening, and thank you for allowing me to be part of this. And thank you for your sharing.
Thank you, Oliver. I
Okay.
really appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for being here with us. And yes,
thank you.
I really resonate with, love being that center. And, for me, it's like, it's that acceptance of what is, really, I think. So,
which is hard sometimes.
Yes, definitely work in progress.
Really, yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you so much. Carmel, love, giving you the chance. Have you gone through the dark night of technology?
So isn't it interesting, the obstacles and working out what changes the frequency that we can then communicate. So I suddenly went into darkness here, and I lost it. I was like, help, and I got the help. It's a wonderful metaphor of asking and ye shall receive, and I did. And I thought, well, how prolific that it should happen in the middle of our communication here, that we're looking at this idea of spiritual awakening. And suddenly I was not awake, I was fast asleep, fumbling around with computer technology in the darkness. And lo and behold, there was life beholden to me through the other that came in and helped me and showed me the way. And I felt that was very metaphoric and symbolic of and exactly the same with the earphones. They just weren't working. So do we stay with what's not working, or do we find answers and work within the constructs of that challenge and recognize it's happening in this moment, in every moment of every moment? We just have this assumption that it isn't. Well, I would like to sit with that for half a minute. And it was interesting that someone, I think everybody was saying beautiful, basically the same thing in one's own language and interpretation of our own experiences. And as everyone was talking, I was going, well, I don't know where I'm going to go with this. I'm just going to see what shows up. And I made some notes, which obviously wasn't seeing what showed up in that moment. But so I'm going to see what shows up in this moment. And Oliver says something about it always happening in Lisa, and everyone was saying things about what awakening might be. And of course, Oliver talked about the both sides, awakening, asleep, and the duality. So for me, what does spiritual awakening mean to me? So I would say, what does spiritual experience mean to me? Because if I use the language of awakening, then I'm immediately drawn to duality. And therefore, the opposite of awakening must always be always present alongside awakening. So if I walk awake, asleep, I'm forever in those two worlds. And it's more for me about how do I integrate the dark and the light and sit, as we talk about, Oliver and I often talk about together, surfing the wave, which is very much about holding the balance of the duality of life, which is ever present. And of course, we are born from that duality of the coming together of the male and the female aspect that then creates the experience of the next and the next and the next. So that duality is ever present. So when we talked, and Nina talked and started with the dark night of the soul, I always find that very prolific, because those dark nights of the soul equate to the light days of the sun, which then again proliferate to the dark nights of the soul and the bright days of the sun. And they are always in community, that they are always being experienced. And what I've learned over my life and the work that I do and the people that I sit with and who sit with me is that we are always in communion of finding the balance of that within our lives. So for me, it isn't about becoming enlightened at all. It's just about moment to moment experience of what I'm working with in this present moment. And so I don't know if I would use that word awakening. And I know it's a word that we use and has been really used a lot in spiritual jargon, but more for me, it's about becoming present. And what does that mean? Even the becoming present is a paradox, because you can't become present. You either are present or you're not. So when I'm not present, it means that I'm out of balance in some way. And then that's the work. So how do I, again, hold that steady between the light and the dark and the spectrum of what that might be? I'm just going to hold and see if there's anything else I want to say at this precise moment on that. No, I feel really good with that. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to offer the stick back to you, Nina, because I believe we've done a circle, correct?
Thank you so much, beautiful sister. I appreciate it, and you know, I really love this format of the round table and coming together in this way, because you know, we all talk about the same thing and giving, you know, using our same words or our own words, as you said, but at the same time we are learning from each other through sharing. And I think this is something so beautiful. While, you know, when I was in school and I was educated, you know, I was indoctrinated into, you know, acquiring a certain viewpoint that is the truth, or that will bring me validation or pat in the back or a good grade or whatever, and all the rest is opposing. So it's just what you talked about, this duality, you know, it really hit me home. And I'm really hoping that just, you know, doing these round tables, it will inspire people and hopefully give a good example how we can sit at the same table and share for the benefit of all, and not just for our personal benefit, but all of the people who are receiving, you know, this transmission and this podcast. So I'm really grateful for all of you. So we have just a couple of moments to share. So I made just some really, you know, little notes that I wanted to repeat to close our space. And yeah, follow the signs. If you are in a bad place, if you are in your dark night, there are always signs. Ask and you shall receive. That some of you said that the help is always available, support is always available. The universe is there for us to help us, to support us, and working towards our own good and for our benefit. So open your eyes, open your ears, ask for help, and see what comes, and then follow those signs, follow that intuitive guidance as Lisa was sharing, and it will lead you, to the places where you can go to grow and to expand more and to elevate yourself. I really loved, that what Lisa shared. Where can I get more of this? I think that's such a good statement, and I think that's for me that intuitive guidance that is telling me, you go this way. I want more of this, Bless you, sister. I want more, this feels good, this feels nurturing, this feels safe, this feels loving, So I really love that. And to get to the light, we have to go through the darkness. I think all of us share that in some shape and form. And then Oliver shared that is a never-ending kind of cycle, at least on this level of duality. Then the light and the brightness, and then the dark night again, and so on and so forth. But what I learned through my journey and through the plants is how to navigate this with a greater ease and with some more grace than just like kind of being dragged at the beginning, so to say, on some rocky path. So I wanted to share that, and every challenge is an opportunity. I really do believe that, and the yin yang sign, how is that little seed of light in the darkness, and then in the light is that little seed of darkness, and sowing these seeds and being mindful what seeds we are planting for ourselves and for future generations. And I really love the perspectives about balance, so duality and good and bad, and I mean we all live in this framework of this reference. That's how we orient, that's how we navigate in this reality. And I think for me, wholeness as well just means balance. Being whole means being balanced and being in that center and not pulled into either side or to be overwhelmed. And just when we are present, we are in that center, we are in that balance, we are in that love and acceptance and innocence and purity. So I just wanted to kind of summarize that. And what I would like to do, just go another round and to give you just maybe a minute or two, if you feel to share something with any message that you want to put out, a tool you want to share, or some wisdom that came to you, just to share with our audience before we finish this transmission for today. So I'm gonna give it to you, Callie.
Last minute words. I believe that our souls are wired to love us because we're born of love, we're made of love. So everything that comes from our soul is love. And so it's learning to understand, how do we interpret this language of love? And I believe that the universe is conspiring with us and bringing us back to this state of love and innocence. So my invitation to everyone is to slow down and feel yourself and feel the world around you and feel where that pulse of love is, and how can each of us take steps to loving ourselves fully and loving this world in a radical way.
Thank you. Yes to radical love. Lisa, giving you the stick, sister.
Yeah, something I just want to add. We talk about duality, and I would like to question that. Again, I think it's another piece of conditioning that we've been given and that we've taken it. And we're kind of stuck in that circle and that cycle. And actually, I believe that it's not true. I believe that life is multiple levels, multiple dimensions. and multiple aspects. And we're just limiting ourselves if we believe that it's just in duality. And walking my shamanic path, this is just one path that I walk. One thing I want to share is that that I've learned, and that's kind of come to me as I've kind of worked through my shoveling my shit, as I call it, is that everything is alive. You know, we're talking about humans, but in fact, the planet is alive, and the animals are alive, and the trees are alive, and even inanimate objects are alive. I mean, I find myself every day talking to my car, talking to my apartment, talking to my computer, you know, and for me, and I do that all the time. You know, if you kind of come walk with me every day, we'll be talking to everything. And that's just one level, right? So I think part of the, if you want to call it awakening, whatever word you want to use, is to realize that everything is alive. Everything has spirit. If you want to talk about spirit or soul, everything has spirit. That's my experience. That's just another level to add to our everyday life, right? I bless my food because it's alive. I bless the food chain, everybody who got the food onto my plate, right? Another level I just want to quickly add is the dream space, right? I mean, all the indigenous peoples say that this is a dream, right? Every level and every moment is a dream state. How many of those out there? I mean, there's not just two, right? There are multiple. And then, and then if you add taking master plants like peyote or ayahuasca, and et cetera, et cetera. So we live in a multi-dimensional world. Forget this concept of duality that is just limiting us.
Oh, thank you, sister. I really loved, what you shared about duality is already a limited perspective, and how we are beautiful multidimensional beings living in a multidimensional universe, and there is infinite perspectives and viewpoints and also possibilities. Thank you for that. Aya, sister, giving you the stick.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I guess some last thoughts or last words that come to mind is courage. It takes so much courage to walk whatever path you're walking. It doesn't matter what it is, shamanic, ayahuasca, plant medicines, whatever your path is, somatic, unknown, untitled, duality. This work is really hard. It's really, really hard. And you're so worth it. We're worth it. This planet is worth it. And yeah, that's just kind of what's come up in the forefront of just kind of thinking about spiritual awakening and a spiritual path and the principles. And it's not always easy. And of course, there's tools that make it feel more graceful and easier, right? Like things like mindfulness and breath work and rituals and ceremony, intention, all these things. And yeah, so just want to, whoever's listening, it's just like, you are courageous. You are incredible. You're transcending ancestral lines, your own line, in order to become, the person you already are, right? But just to like embody it and to be, yeah. So those are some of my last thoughts, and just want to say thank you. Just super grateful to all of you guys here. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate you. Oliver, giving you the chance to some last words of wisdom.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. I was told once, observe with no expectations, no judgments, and wait for further instructions. And they will always come right on time. And I found when I can do that, not easy, often not easy, but if I can manage to do that, I do get the instructions and they always are spot on. That's it. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Oliver. Carmel, sister, giving you the stick.
Thank you. So Oliver and I, the entity that came through, or the entities, were interestingly male and female. So there was the female aspect and the male aspect of the entity, even though there were two separate aspects. So even in that, they showed up with the frequency of the male and the frequency of the female. And I think what I know in my own work is that we have so much diversity. And recently working with the LGBT non-binary group and learning to say them and they and stepping outside, but it's still on the spectrum of everything and all. And really, I believe that conditioning is like a curtain. And as soon as that curtain starts to part and open, a whole new perspective of understanding starts to proliferate, and it can be really, really, really joyful and childlike, and it's as if seeing the universe again through new eyes. And I remember once Oliver and I were sitting together, and one of the things that the entity shared was that if you go and lie down outside and you lie and you look at the stars and you keep looking and you keep looking, the stars open and you see more and more and more. And you just watch from a childlike perspective of curiosity and playfulness and openness and willingness. And my experience now is that when I show up to life from that place, and it is not always easy, and it is not even always possible on some level at times, then I will always see more. Once the dark night of the soul has started to clear and the day has started to shine. And the card that I just picked is the card Miracle. And it was literally just beckoning me to pick it. So I'm just going to read it to close, if I may. It says, "Our wings of light surround us and those that we love. The current situation is governed by all for all, and the forces of love are at work only always, only always."
Thank you, beautiful sister. I really appreciate your words and this beautiful message that you shared with us. It reminds me of the Course in Miracles. Miracle is a shift of perspective from fear to love. That's something really resonated with me, came into my mind. So thank you all so much. We're gonna close our circle for today and this transmission. So let's just close our eyes and take a deep breath and allow ourselves to receive all that was shared into our bodies, into our hearts and souls and minds. And we trust with our hearts that this message, this transmission will reach far and wide and come to all of those people who need to listen or hear this message at any moment or any point in their life, and bring their love and upliftment and understanding, clarity and joy and peace in their hearts. We thank for the guardians and all the beings of all the realms who were here with us today, and present in our space. Thank you for your presence and your guidance and your messages. And as we breathe this love and these intentions into the wind to be carried all around. And just taking another breath, allowing us to ground back into your private space, back into the earth. And with our next exhale, we can gently open our eyes and come back to say our goodbyes. Thank you so much. You can come off mute and say bye to our audience before we stop recording.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much,
Bye,
everybody.
thank you guys.
Yes, lots
Thank
of
you.
love.
Yeah.
Bye.